Hello everyone, Rotary Swing Tour instructor Craig Morrow here. And today what I want to do is I want to show you how you can fix two takeaway flaws with using your alignment rod. Now a question I get often is how much elevation should I add in the takeaway? Because as I start to add elevation, well, my hands start to go away or I start to roll the club inside. Well, you need a little bit of elevation in the takeaway because the arms, hands, and club need to stay out in front of the body as you start to make your big rotation in the backswing. So I'm going to show you how you can use your alignment rod at home, not only to start adding that little bit of elevation necessary, but to also keep the hands in check, that they don't start to push out or overactivate, work on the improper side of the stick, which you'll see, throwing the club inside. And let me show you. If I take my setup right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move up to this stick, and you'll see that I'm kind of on the front third of the stick, so I have 2/3 of the stick on the right side of me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up to where my trail hand is just on the inside of this stick, okay? In the takeaway, we want big rotation, but we also need to make sure that we have a little bit of elevation so that the club arms and hands can stay in front. So if you look at this stick right here and you look at my takeaway, as I start to go back, you're gonna see that when I get to this position, I'm nice and toe up, nothing's inside. You can see the logo on my chest, but I've used a really big rotation to create a nice one-piece takeaway. But the problem I see often is this. Players going from here and saying, okay, well, I need to keep the arms out in front of me. So the first thing that they do off the ball is they push their arms and hands out this way. All right, well now we've over elevated too soon. We've moved the club too much with our arms and hands, and more than likely we're not going to finish our golf swing with rotation. The other problem I see is that they start from here, and as they make the backswing, their hands work this way, more specifically the lead hand, which starts to throw the club head inside and starts to roll it inside too soon, which now they're going to have to make a lot of counter manipulation towards the top and especially coming down. But elevation is the tricky one. Well, Craig, I don't want to roll the club this way. I don't want to push my hands out this way. How do I make sure that I add enough elevation without manipulating my hands too much or without manipulating club face too much? Well, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take this stick, set up on the first kind of third section of it. And I want you to scooch up to where you're just inside the stick with your trail hand. So you can kind of see it from your eyes right here. You can use a camera or a mirror. And I want you to maintain your hands on the inside of this stick all the way until the club's parallel to the ground. But I don't want this club parallel to the ground until you're at the end of the stick. And let me show you what I mean. As I start to go through here, I'm not going to get parallel to the ground until I almost feel like my club head is at the end of this stick. And what this is going to do is this is A, going to keep my hands inside, but B, it's going to start to force me to add enough elevation so that this club head doesn't work on the inside of the stick too soon. If I take my setup here and I focus on making a big rotation, so I'm using my abs, my obliques, my lats, I'm rotating off the golf ball. If my lead wrist has a little bit of cupping to it, because I have a slightly strong grip, so I've got a little bit of angle here. My trail wrist you'll see is flat. All I'm going to focus on is maintaining that wrist position as I rotate. And as I rotate, you'll see how my hands stay on the inside, but I'm going to also focus on making sure that my club head stays on the outside until it's parallel to the ground, or you can see it's almost in line with this rod on the ground. This is going to help me rotate, but add just enough elevation to keep the club out in front of me. And for those that tend to push the hands out when they add elevation, you'll see if I set up right here and I start to over elevate too soon, well now my hands are on this side of the rod. I've added too much too soon. I need to prioritize rotating and keeping my hands a little bit more on the inside of the stick. If I go from here and I push my left hand out, which is going to throw the club to the inside, well, I've now done too much with my arms and hands. I need to go back and focus on rotating and maintaining the cupping in my lead wrist and the flatness of my trail wrist. There is a little bit of wrist set in the takeaway, but you'll feel it kind of naturally set a little bit with the weight of the club. But the goal of this is to help you blend rotation with the proper amount of elevation. That it's not just an arm motion of going straight up. It's not just a rotational motion of going right behind you. As you can see, as I start to get to here, the club's not parallel to the ground yet, and I'm already inside and the club's getting behind me. So take your alignment rod, sit up on the first kind of third of it, have about 2/3 of it to your right side or away from you in the backswing. I want you to get just inside of it with your trail hand, and when you get here, I want you to focus on maintaining the cupping in the lead wrist, keep the trail wrist flat, and I want you to rotate. And as you rotate, make sure that that club doesn't cross that stick until you're parallel to the ground. And this is going to help you add enough elevation to keep it in front, but also not manipulate your takeaway too much with your hands early on, which will get you too much of an armsy, handsy takeaway.